I said, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to John Dudley Speaks. I'm your host, the Primetime Emmy Award for Writing. Toronto R&B singer turned global pop icon Abel Tesfaye, aka The Weeknd, is pretty much synonymous with widespread mainstream success at this point of his illustrious career. Over a decade ago, Abel gained notoriety for his mysterious, anonymous persona that was associated with his drug-infused alt R&B drops of What You Need, Loft Music, and The Morning, still all considered some of the most impactful records of his career. Upon gaining attention from numerous musical outlets as well as Drake, Abel founded the XO record label and subsequently went on to release what no one knew would turn out to be one of the most historic pieces of modern R&B and electropop, House of Balloons. Merging pitch black noir aesthetics with explicit themes about drugs and sex, Abel established his iconography of The Weeknd with ambitious production and starkly vulnerable performances, and to this day, High for This, Wicked Games, and The Knowing, among many other tracks on that track listing, have shaped the landscape of alternative R&B for over a decade. Thursday and Echoes of Silence followed with flashes of post-punk and ambient, building on the mystique of his brand as it was compiled into the trilogy in 2012. 2013's Kissland marked Abel's first studio effort, and while its world building and atmosphere is completely singular, it always has felt like a bridge between his hypnotically dark neo-alt R&B and the next phase of his career, mainstream pop. The mid-2010s were very kind to Abel on the charts, with Earned It and Beauty Behind the Madness and Starboy all gaining him global mainstream success, cementing his status as a global pop star. Can't Feel My Face, In the Night, Starboy, and I Feel It Coming were all mammoth hits, but he didn't pull back on the gothic-tinged trap R&B either, which bled into his next project, My Dear Melancholy, a throwback of sorts to his debut trilogy of tapes. But just when we thought he couldn't get bigger, then came 2020's After Hours, easily one of the best pop albums of the decade so far. Donning stylized sunglasses and a bold red jacket, Abel took on a character that was so immersed in refreshing new wave, as well as 80s-tinged Michael Jackson pop. But the sound was so revitalized that it led to the biggest hit of his career and one of the biggest hits of all time, Blinding Lights. Heartless, Save Your Tears, In Your Eyes, and After Hours itself all ruled the streaming charts for a solid year and a half, helping Abel become the most streamed artist in the world and land a spot headlining the Super Bowl in 2021. For most artists, that would be the peak, but for Abel, this was just a new start. Dawn FM came at the top of 2022, and it's a marvelously underrated swing into EDM, UK new wave, and synth pop that still enlivens the 80s-driven jams he's become known for, just this time with more of an intoxicatingly plastic twist. Also, my favorite song from The Weeknd, Here We Go Again, is on that record, so I'll always be a little bit more partial to that one. But it was from here where Abel alluded to us being in the midst of another trilogy, and not long after tidbits would drop along his tour that new music and a new evolution of The Weeknd's identity was on the way, starting with the non-album single Dancing in the Flames, which was found underwhelming by some, but I thought it was great. So now, with the widely anticipated Hurry Up Tomorrow, does Abel make the goodbye to this era of his career an obvious prime, a worthwhile one that matches the massive hype? In short, hell yes. It couldn't have been a better conclusion. One of the best records I've heard in the last half decade. 100% a record that demands our attention and praise, as it's generational pop that has absolutely no equal. I'm not entirely sure how to categorize the production aesthetics of this record, considering it's the most eclectic, assorted palette that Abel's ever worked with, but I think that above all, these instrumentals signify a form of solace amongst the chaos, an acceptance of fate of sorts, that's translated through technical bombast mixed with orchestral allure, with production work across 22 tracks that spans from minds like the legendary Mike Dean, One O Tricks Point Never, and Max Martin, as well as added contributions from Metro Boomin, Justice, Dahila, Circuit, Oji Volta, and many others. This bold sonic adventure through The Weeknd's state of mind is never less than thrilling, it's never less than unpredictable, and not to mention it's pristinely mixed with a strong attention to a seamless blending of styles. But make no mistake, it's The Weeknd's vision and his curation that allows this thing to thrive and feel lively as hell. So I'm going to go through all of these songs because I feel like each one deserves its own kind of shout out. First, Wake Me Up patiently starts us off on a dramatic note until the justice-driven funk beat cuts into the fold, coasting along like a slick late 70s Michael Jackson radio jam with sparkling synths and mildly dissonant chord progressions that instill tension amid the flare. But rather than diving right back into this aesthetic, Abel turns to Metro and Mike Dean to deliver a new variation on his trap R&B formula on Cry For Me, one that benefits from its otherworldly industrial-leaning synths and near reggaeton-inspired drum patterns that escalate until Metro just goes absolutely nuts on the trap-inspired outro. Abel's vocals are pitched down akin to My Dear Melancholy, but this is a synthesis of this idea that's better executed here and polished with even more production production gloss that's even more balanced in the genre flourishes that it plays with. This aesthetic flows perfectly into Sao Paulo. That makes so much more sense in this context than as a single, with the buzzing synth patterns and the industrial dance-inflected, rave-inspired glitz and glam of it all melding expertly with the Brazilian funk origins. The Anitta feature is mixed into the fray with a tactical energy that enlivens the pace of the track, as it keeps your attention with each new movement that Sean Solomar and Mike Dean introduce. I venture to say that the spare balladry of Baptized in Fear evokes House of Balloons and its pitch black presentation, but the sound is fuller and more fully realized. While the following track, Open Hearts, flips the script immediately, it has Max Martin going hard on the 80s electropop angle that he and The Weeknd have perfected up until this point. With a throbbing synth-heavy bass line and a Depeche Mode influenced rhythm at its core, it's truly one of the best songs that The Weeknd has ever made. And this bonkers instrumental allows him to achieve this vision through tempered dynamics that don't overstay their welcome, but instead are placed in the right order to drive connection. The haunting synths of the opening night interlude are offset by pulsing kick drums that launch us into the progressive trap of Reflections Laughing, which has a Circus Maximus quality to its jet black aesthetics, but it's the faded, washed out guitar and the reverberating, chopped and screwed back half that make this another W for Mike Dean and Metro. Moving forward, enjoy the show with its Kanye West inspired chipmunk soul, also calls back to the party and the after party and its neo R&B charm, while the booming bass drums and hi-hats on Given Up on Me are elevated in their cinematic appeal, crossed with its excellently positioned soul samples, reminded me of Metro and Future's We Don't Trust You because it touches on those same kind of artistic blends. And that's just the first half of this astounding record, because from here, Abel isn't done with genre amalgamations, incorporating Jackson 5 inspired soul into I Can't Wait to Get There, which is sat beside the noir rage aesthetics of Timeless and the cloudy, uplifting pop synths of Niagara Falls. One of the best musical moments on this entire thing can be found on Take Me Back to LA, steered by Abel, Dean, and Dahila's cohesion and vision, ostentation, and patience, propping up simmering 80s synths and a groovy backbeat reminiscent of A Flock of Seagulls and Duran Duran in their heyday. Big Sleep has a huge Daft Punk influence in its culmination of sounds in the back half, and that's no mistake due to Giorgio's presence in the production credits, but I also found it to have a grand, sweeping quality that made me think of old scores of vampire films. I don't know, it's oddly haunting and I can't quite put my finger on why, which is another reason why it's great. Yet it's Abel's brilliant juxtapositions here that lend so much importance to Give Me Mercy, its bright, luminous Lionel Richie inspired instrumental, benefiting from softer touches that aren't abrasive, but scale back with a sense of hope embedded in its construction. One of Trace Poinever's contributions on the triumphant synths that build through the chorus of Drive are incredible, as they mix so effortlessly into the trap-laden drums. And then the beauty of this track really comes from the feedback on the refrain, as it phases in and out with echoes that are entrancing, prepping us for a climactic musical conclusion in the next few tracks. I love the trickling piano keys on The Abyss, the minimalist sensibilities on Red Terror, that morph pop, trap, and operatic dance pop elements into something that's unique and refreshing. Then you have Without a Warning, once again mixing modern trap embellishments into the modern pop framework, creating a stylistic deviation from the norm that I don't think I've heard since Yeezus. It's deeply unsettling in how it feels familiar, yet this hybrid is completely innovative in how it's presented in a mainstream fashion, something that the closing title track indulges in, especially when it comes to its inspirational tone, and it has a lot more in common with alternative rock and stadium rock than R&B and trap. But it's Abel's substitutions of the usual motifs found in these types of tracks for synthetic touches that make it feel so heightened and important, and you can't help but feel a lump in your throat by its end, because he not only completed a trilogy of music that pushed style and aesthetics into a completely fascinating new direction for the music industry, but he was creating something new and breaking the rules up into the very last track of it. To me, that's powerful and a testament to his true artistry as a curator. In that sense, it just yields production that's impossible to beat. Abel's songwriting on record has varied for me personally over the years, especially when looking back at his earlier cracks at pop aesthetics and song structures, and I often do think that he would push too hard on the explicit angle of his brand of R&B, to the point of sounding hilarious and overbearing. However, there's this synthesis of jet black thematic material and familiar dance pop storytelling laced with industrial-led composition on After Hours, Dawn FM, and House of Balloons that's truly undeniable, and it speaks to his masterful talent in arrangement and composition. And Hurry Up Tomorrow is the perfect concoction of that approach to his writing, paying off the narrative that he not just started with After Hours, but with the entire Weeknd persona. And surprisingly, it doesn't come together as corny or heavy-handed. Instead, it's grand yet intimate, mentally perplexing but spiritually uplifting. Wake Me Up in its multi-segmented song structure picks up right where Dawn FM left off with its nihilism, as Abel pines over the meaninglessness of life, and how death in the absence of afterlife is a fate that he's willing to accept. But that smashing hook in the second part of the song feels like he's being hit with a defibrillator, as he takes charge authoritatively and outright rejects this notion that he isn't cut out for salvation, partly because he hasn't even tried yet. Redirecting the themes of Save Your Tears, Cry For Me finds Abel pleading with his partner to reciprocate, especially in this hour of turmoil and regret and brutal honesty, as he notes that his problems on the road with his vices are ultimately killing him. From a songwriting standpoint, the chaotic lead-in from I Can't Fucking Sing to Sao Paulo is astonishing, especially in its horror-inflected tone, likely something that the Hurry Up Tomorrow film will explore in detail. But I think Sao Paulo and its representation of a curse over Abel as he tries to lift himself out of peril, it's so indicative of temptation and the manifestation of it. Like Anita's translation is filthy and necessary in its filth, to drive this point home of how his succumbing to his lust is forming some kind of demon baby that was used in the promo. Wicked and gross and awesome in its visualization of carnal manipulation of the mind juxtaposed to salvation and spirituality. Baptized in Fear hits all the classic Weekend ballad notes in its formulation and execution. And Abel's vulnerability in the face of having to start over on Open Hearts is him at probably his most relatable yet. I think the interlude on Reflections Laughing is genius, especially how it's able to capture Abel's tortured, drug-addled state and how it morphs into a terrific Travis Scott feature. It's trap R&B of the highest order. Then you have Abel's more bitter and reflective perspective on Enjoy the Show, which is juxtaposed to Timeless, one being caught up in the idea of wanting to die at his peak, not quite knowing how long this peak will last, while the other brags about how he's always known he's the best. It's juxtaposition like this that lyrically communicates to us his state of mind and how fragile it is, and it's done so in such an honest fashion. Speaking of honesty, the brutal candidness of Given Up on Me, and ultimately the outspoken desire to have a chance at heaven on I Can't Wait to Get There, both prove to be deeply moving and painstakingly human. Once again, the multi-movement, multi-segmented aspects of Niagara Falls, Red Terror, Take Me Back to LA, an inverse of Escape from LA, all excel due to Abel's resistance of convention, allowing his mood setting to push the vibe forward rather than relying on modern pop songwriting tropes to a detrimental extent. That's why the double whammy of Drive and Give Me Mercy is so damn emotional, because his sympathetic reasoning with concern to forgiveness and renewal feels earned, and his appreciation of A New Tomorrow feels like a credits roll victory lap type moment. But I'm really glad that the album ends the way it does, with Abel's gut-wrenching, concrete aspirations for heaven after death, and ultimately to reach enlightenment through metamorphosis. Not only does it complete his reformation over the course of 3 albums, but it comprehensively adapts how we view his entire career as The Weeknd, even going as far as to connect to the instrumental of High for This. It's multifaceted, it's raw, it's technically skilled in its presentation to the audience, it's extremely compelling in its authenticity, and it's unapologetically Abel, and I don't think we could have asked for anything better.
I don't wanna waste your time, just wanna feel the air on my body.
Never have I enjoyed a performance from The Weeknd more than I have on this one, because he absolutely knocks it out of the park on every track here. You get every version of Abel that you've ever seen before, just more refined and touched up, with his talent on a high that's electric and pulsing with energy and vitality more than ever before. But then simultaneously, he leans into pockets of his artistry and delivery that we've never heard before. And that's what makes this performance so well-rounded and visceral. He leaves no stone unturned. Take, for instance, the softer disco pop of Wake Me Up and the wistful balladry of Baptized in Fear and Drive. He keeps himself a little bit more restrained and lets the right moments appear for him to hit hard with a striking vocal passage. However, his more cutting, long-form verses on Timeless, Enjoy the Show, and I Can't Wait to Get There boast his versatility in conveying emotions, whether that be cockiness, desperation, or defeat. I personally love the moments where he really lets his vocal chops take center stage, like on Give Me Mercy, Cry For Me, and the title track, because when he belts it and makes a genuine effort to connect to you through his magnificent talent as a vocalist, it's a really special thing. I just don't know how he's able to continue delivering such towering performances, all while finding time to slide into an introspective lane and use that downtime for interrogative beats that truly make the bigger swings pay off so much more. Abel understands the importance of dynamics in that sense, and not just that, he thrives off of it, since it leads him to be more engaged and at one with his art. And that's so audible on everything that he gives to these songs. Moreover, it's just a testament to the immense level of skill that he has that no one else in the music industry possesses at this time. The longest album from the weekend yet at an hour and 24 minutes. These 22 tracks raced by so fast that I didn't want the album to be over. Abel suspends you in this incredible world that he's built since 2019, and it swallows you whole with this mystifying musical grandiosity and an admirable penchant for sorrowful yet edifying, entrenched lyricism that keeps you hanging on every word and every motif. The complaint I had with After Hours is that it always started off a little weaker than the rest of the album turned out to be, while Dawn FM turned out to have some hangups in the midsection. But Abel takes those problems and throws them out immediately. Wake Me Up is a kick-ass intro, and Cry For Me is an instant radio hit, but I just adore that transition into the punishing fury of Sao Paulo, which is now an all-time top 10 favorite single from the weekend for me. But I like that you get a couple more interludes into Baptized in Fear and into Reflections Laughing, but after that, nothing but finely produced album cuts for like an hour. It's a behemoth. The midsection that favors bigger swings into progressive trap R&B slinks into a dance pop hybrid-esque portion with Niagara Falls, Take Me Back to LA, and Big Sleep to set up the final run of big tracks, which is the best set of tracks of the weekend's career. It's endlessly thrilling all the way through the title track, and unpredictably, it mixes up musical stylings while staying intact with what we know the weekend to be as a musical maestro. So by the time you reach the record's final notes, you realize how much you don't want this era to end. So much so you find yourself diving right back into the first track.
Bota na boca, bota na cara, bota onde Bota na boca, bota na cara, bota onde.
Hurry Up Tomorrow is a masterful conclusion to an iconic repertoire of music that's destined to go down in history as one of the best culminations of an artist's vision ever, really. Using far-reaching genre hybridizations that pay tribute to everything from Brazilian funk to electropop, industrial trap, progressive new wave, lounge-heavy soul. The record also ensures that it's all packaged ingeniously to have mass appeal to fans worldwide. Only people to do that are like Michael Jackson and Prince. And if we haven't already, we should be putting The Weeknd in that same conversation of all-time greats, because this is going to be something that we're discussing for decades to come. But hey, that's just my perspective. If you're a fan of The Weeknd, I'm sure you're just as blown away as I am. And if you're looking for a house-infused, electropop-heavy R&B record with a dash of new wave and alternative pop, this will be a super enjoyable one for you. Alright, that's all I got. Bye!